Okay, I just want to make a quick video to kind of play with some of this stuff and show you some of these tools for this week's assignment. So I've created a box and I've created a cylinder. I created them in my front view because I kind of wanted them on their sides over here. So I'm going to select this box. The one thing I definitely want is I want to make sure, well, it's probably fine. You can see that when I created the box, the center point on the box is in the middle. That's going to be important because we're going to be animating this and I'm going to be rotating around this center point. And if it's not in the middle, it's going to look weird. So I want to make sure it's in the center. The box should be, but if for whatever reason you're creating an object and it's not so much in the middle anymore, if I've converted it, let's say for example, already to editable poly, you can actually change kind of the settings on this thing here. So so again, this one's working pretty good, but we can modify it if we need to. So here, if I have my box, if this were in the wrong spot, I can go to my third tab over, which is our hierarchy tab. Again, we're going to be playing around with our hierarchy and motion tabs in this class. So, you know, we're moving away from the first two, which is probably where you spent most of your time in 3D graphics. And you can do things like move the pivot point or the object only. So if I click move pivot point, again, notice it sort of changed. And then I can do something like center to object. So you can see in this case, it moved it to the center in the middle of the thickness, but it's still in basically the same spot because it wasn't about the right spot. But if for whatever reason it was off, again, you can click that button and it'll go right there. When you're animating, your pivot points are really important because they're the origins of your model. And so if they're in the wrong spot, your model is going to animate real wonky. So just heads up. But here we go. I've got these two objects together. And let's start by doing some hierarchical linking. Basically, I'm going to take this box here and I'm going to, first I'm just going to move it. I'm going to move it to in front of my cylinder. Oh yeah, it looks good. Maybe I don't want it to touch, but in the front, right about there, looks fine. And then I'm going to click the linking tool, click it, and I'm going to click and drag from the box to the cylinder. Now, over here, it's going to show you now, under the cylinder is the box. These have been hierarchically linked. A lot of hard to say, but basically just means that now the cylinder is the boss. So if I move the cylinder, notice the box goes with it. So they're kind of attached. Now they're not fused or welded together like a model. They're more attached like in a child-parent relationship where they're like holding hands. And so wherever the parent, which is the cylinder is, goes, the box will follow. Now you can see, here's my origin point of my cylinder. If I don't like that, and I don't really like it, I might grab this and just move it back to the middle, or I can click the center to object on this guy here and put that there. Again, oops, sorry, wrong button. I want to do this one. As we animate, again, if we don't like it, we can always move it. But once we start animating it, we don't want to move it after we animate. So again, if it's not right, we can undo it and then fix it. But the point I want to show you is with a hierarchical link, these two are attached. This is kind of our base piece of advanced animation systems, hierarchical linking. One object affects another one. Kind of like the bone structure in your arm, right? If I move this arm or this bone, all the rest of the bones have to follow, right? My hand doesn't take off. If you ever see the mistakes from Toy Story or the other animated films, that's often what happens. The hierarchical linking breaks or something goes super wonky. All right, so now that I've got this, we're gonna play around with our controllers and our constraints. This is pretty easy too. I'm just going to basically, I can either use the line tool and draw or one of these other tools. I'm gonna do the line tool because it's more fun. And in my top view, I'm gonna draw a path. Now, this, until we modify it, is a two-dimensional path. You can see it has no depth right now. That's okay. But here I've got this path. When you select and create a spline, if we go to the sub-object level, down to vertexes, notice this one is yellow. That means it is my starting vertex. This is the starting point. That means this one will be the ending point. That's going to matter for what we're doing next. All splines, even if they're closed shapes, always have an origin point. If they're a closed shape, you can define which point you want for that origin though. So you can modify it if it's not right. So I'm going to grab my cylinder. Now again, all I've done is linked the pink box to the cylinder, and I've drawn a wiggly line. Now, again, grabbing my cylinder, we're going to come up here to our animation drop-down menu, and we're going to play with it. So for this one, I'm going to play around with my position controller, I think. Yes, and I'm going to go under here. There's a lot of them because there are some really advanced, really impressive animation tools. If you haven't checked out week 1 wrap-up, please check it out at some point. I have a list of all of the films that have been used with 3ds Max. This is professional level software. So if it becomes challenging, remind yourself this is the same software they use to make Transformers, right? This, hey, give yourself a break. So I'm going to do path constraint. When I click it, you can see just like when I had the linking tool, it looks exactly the same, right? Because it kind of is. It's kind of like linking, but in this case, I'm going to link the position information of the cylinder to the percentage along the path. Now, again, a lot of math happening. Remember, all I did was click a drop-down menu, hit a button, and now I'm clicking on the line. So while there is a whole lot of math happening, I got a computer to do it. So you can see here, now it's jumped to that point. Remember I said that point was the origin. It also will auto-animate along the entirety of the path to whatever your timeline is set to. If you didn't change anything like I didn't, it'll be set to 100 frames. It's important to note, video for the most part runs at about 30 frames per second. Give or take. I don't want to argue with any of you who may have taken some film classes. But right now what that means is that this entire animation is just slightly over 3 seconds long, which is fast. So if I hit play, notice the cylinder moves along the entire line within the 100 frames, which is a little over 3 seconds long, through the entire path. Notice how easy that was. Now, over here, notice it jumped to my 4th tab. I said we're going to be using it, right? Remember? All right. Over here, you can see here's my line. You can actually add multiple paths, and you can even transition between them. So if you had like 3 planes moving along the same path, but you wanted one to verge off, you could add a different vector, a different path for that to go off into without affecting the other ones or any combination. So we can add it. By default, it does put weight 50, not 100, because you can have more than one path affect an object even. But if there's nothing else there, 50 plus 0 is 50, it's still going to affect it all the way. So it doesn't really matter that it's not at 100, it's at 50. That's fine because there's no other path. Here you can see the percentage along path is animated, so if I move this, that number changes from 100 to 0 and anywhere in between. And you can modify this if you wanted to speed up or slow down, for example. Constant velocity is checked, which means it runs the same throughout. If you uncheck it, it will use the shape of the line to kind of play with the velocity. All right, which again, maybe what you want, maybe not. You can also click this one, which is really cool, follow, and it will actually rotate the object to follow the path. Now you can see here, it's using the wrong orientation. That's okay, we'll fix it in a second. And I can also do bank, which will kind of make it move a little bit. Now, again, I like those settings because they make a really nice, realistic animation. But this is my really janky airplane, and it's facing the wrong way because down here, it's using the wrong axis. So I need to pick the right axis. Again, you can see why. It looks great. If it were backwards, I could hit flip. Okay. Now, if I hit play, you can see it banks and it moves, and look at that sweet, smooth, nice motion, right? Now, what's really great about this is this. All I did inside this box here was I changed the axis because it was facing the wrong way. But now I can go back to my path, and this is where it gets cool. I'm telling you, I can go to vertex and move these vertices around in 3-dimension, and you can see I can even change again the Bezier curves and stuff, the location within 3-dimensional space and stuff. So now my airplane is not just flying on a 2-dimensional plane. It's like the end of Star Trek II. Sorry if I'm spoiling it. It's a fantastic film. But they beat Khan at the end because he's not thinking 3-dimensionally. He's navigating on a flat 2D plane not realizing in three-dimensional space, you can go up and down. They make it sound fancy in that too. But you can see here, I can modify this path, and however it goes, it'll do it. This is a really awesome tool for doing some really advanced stuff. This would be a really hard animation to do. Now let's do one more thing. Let's go back here to the beginning. We're going to add another animation. Now if I would have done this animation first, it probably would have been easier, but it'll be fine. I'm going to grab my box here. I'm going to turn on rotate. I'm going to turn on auto key because it will automatically make my keys for me. Now I will tell you, it tends to make a key for all of the keys, including movement, rotation, and scale. So I'm going to maybe want to delete those, some of them. But I'm just going to come over here to 5, maybe 10, and I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees along the rotational axis. And you can see here at the top, it's really hard to get 180 degrees. So if I hit Control Z, I can turn on angle snap and percentage snap, and now I can easily get negative 180 degrees. And you can see here's my animation. See, it flips. Okay? Now that's it. That's pretty cool, but we're going to make it way cooler than that. So I've animated, again, these 2 keyframes. And you can see the propeller spinning there. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go to my animation here, and I'm going to go, where is it? Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to again modify this. I'm going to come up here to my graph editors, and I'm going to go to my curve editor. So the curve editor is going to show the animation we just created here on this curve. And by default, 3ds Max will actually ease in and ease out of an animation. As you remember from our principles animation, most of the time that's a good thing. But this time I'm going to modify it just a little bit. I don't want it to ease in and out. I want it to have a flat animation curve. And you'll see why in a minute, and it'll make a lot of sense, I promise. But I'm going to click it, and I am going to remove that. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to turn the tangents to linear, which, again, let me pick it. Pick that one. I'm just going to pick them all. Boom. And you want it to be a straight line. Now what that means is that the speed is going to be constant from one to the other with no speeding in and out, flat straight line. Because we're going to do a bit of a trick. I'm going to click this little button here that says parameter out of range types. And I'm going to put, instead of constant, I'm going to put cycle. And I'm going to put forward and back. Again, you can tell it whether to go forward and back. I'm going to do both. Hit OK. Again, back I probably don't need because I'm not animating past 0, but just in case you accidentally didn't have it on 0, we're going to do both. Hit OK. Now, this isn't right because this looks a little bit weird. I don't know if I picked the right one. I think maybe I picked the wrong one. We'll see. Let's play and see. Oh, it doesn't look too bad. Maybe because we animated 180 degrees. But again, let's play around here too. I feel like it should be a constant thing. So let's do, instead of cycle, we're going to do repetitive repeat and see what we got here. You can come in. And then you can see now it'll be a flat line going in both directions. And if I hit play now, we'll have our nice propeller motion going through the animation while it's going through the thing. Okay. And there we go. So you can see this kind of animation would be a little bit difficult to do without these tricks. But with these tricks, we can knock the thing out in what? Oh, a quick 14 minutes. Probably less if I didn't talk so much. But here we are. Okay, good luck this week. Again, this is pretty straightforward. There's some really great resources and videos down below too that probably explain it a little bit better than me. But hopefully you found this video helpful.